Good morning, all of you. My name is Kineilo Mure, the Subject Advisor for Mathematical Literacy, based at Fezle Dabi Education District in Sasolvik. The topic that we are going to concentrate on this morning is measurement. But what specifically on measurement? We are going to concentrate on time. When we talk about time, we talk about a lot of stuff on time, but we'll get to that when we have to explain it in further details. In mathematical literacy, according to the CAPS document, we have progression. In other words, our context and our content is progressing from grade 10 to grade 12. So we need to understand thoroughly what this progression means, but concentrating mainly on this section of time. So let's look at the progression from grade 10 up to grade 12 before we can go in details with the content that is expected, because the main emphasis is going to be based on the content and the context of grade 12. So let's look at the progression with regard to context and content. And when we talk about context and content in mathematical literacy, we talk about things that are embedded in each other. We cannot work with content if we don't have context. We cannot work with context that has no content. So in other words, context and content are the most important part of our syllabus in mathematical literacy. Let's first look at the progression in context, starting with grade 10. We work with time formats and calculations to plan and complete daily activities in the familiar context of the household. That is for grade 10. Then we'll go with the progression starting from grade 10 up to grade 12. Then afterwards we'll come with the content that is expected from that context. Remember, in grade 12, not only grade 12, in mathematical literacy, when we talk about familiar context and unfamiliar context, we say that we cannot only teach our learners on things that they know or only on things that are surrounding them. We also have to make them experience things that they are not used to. That is what unfamiliar context is. I'll explain it further when we come to content. This is grade 10. Grade 10, we only emphasize on familiar context of the household. When we talk about the household, meaning we talk about things that are only meant for an individual or people who are in a home or a household. Let's proceed to grade 11. Progression from grade 10 to grade 11. We work with familiar context of the household again, but then we include the school and a wider community. This will be understood clearly when we show the content that is going hand in hand with the context. The third one, that will be grade 12. Grade 12, we work with time formats and calculations to plan and complete daily activities and trips in both familiar and unfamiliar context. Let's proceed to content. Content that we'll be working with, the one that we said is a familiar context of a household. It is when we are talking about the study or the timetable, the television timetable. That will be for grade 10. An example, we will be having this one. Because I don't have the television timetable with me, I have the Mathslit IBP presentation schedule, which was meant for 2013. But because it's also a presentation which learners and teachers see it on television, this is one of the examples that teachers may utilize in their classroom situation when we talk about the television presentation. Example, our timetable will be having the time when it has to start, meaning that is the program. It will start from 15:30 to 17:30. That will be 3:30 to 5:30. We have days of the weeks. On Monday, the date will be the 14th. What will be the topic that will be done, and who will be the presenter, the contact numbers, and the resources that will be used. This is just an example of what will be going on. When going to grade 11, we concentrate mainly, remember we said it's familiar context again, but now it's not only on household, it now includes the school and wider community. When we include the school, it is where we talk about the lesson timetable. When are the periods going to start, and when are the periods of lessons going to end in a school environment? And also the exam timetable. We have an example of one of those examples of timetables that we can utilize in a grade 11 context, which will give us a content. This is the NSC, National Senior Certificate timetable. This was the previous year's timetable of the trial examination. Teachers can also utilize this in their classroom when talking about the timetable. Proceeding to grade 12. Remember we said in grade 12, we deal with familiar and unfamiliar context. We now proceed further to go to transport timetables, production, construction, and tides timetables. This one, the latter one, tides timetable, has been dealt with in many occasions during these presentations. So we are going to concentrate today on the transport timetable. And when we talk about the transport timetable, we can have the familiar transport timetable and the unfamiliar transport timetable. When I talk about the familiar one, we will mean that will be the buses and the trains. That is what we will think that is familiar to the learners. But then when we go to the airplanes, then that will be unfamiliar for most of our learners, not for all of them. This was just a summary of the progression. Now, let's go to the important notes to remember. Remember when I started, I said when we talk about time, we talk about a lot of things. We can talk about seconds, we talk about hours, we talk about minutes, we talk about days, weeks, months, years. But there are important notes to remember. Remember, we are going to concentrate on the content and the context of grade 12. But we have to go back and check if we still remember some of the factors that we deal with in grade 10 and grade 11. It doesn't necessarily mean that we need to do this in our classes, because previously they have been done. And when we talk about the syllabus of grade 12, according to CAPS, basic skills are not taught in grade 12. So these are just important notes to remember before you continue and go to the important content and context of time. That 60 seconds is equals to 1 minute. 60 minutes will be an hour. 24 hours will be equals to a day. 7 days will be a week. 4 weeks will be a month. 12 months will be a year. And when we come to this of 12 months, check this one out. It's indicated that in that 12 months, sometimes it can be 365 days or it can be 366 days. So learners have to understand why these two options. In other words, in 365 days, it is the normal year. But when we have 366 days, it's this year that we call a leap one. So a leap year, we need to understand that it's that year that has February with 29 days. So remind yourselves, when was that year? And when will it be? When we say that the leap year, it takes 4 years to reach a leap year. When was the last leap year and when will be the next leap year? 10 years is a decade. 10 decades is equals to 100 years. Good, those were points to remember. Now let's continue and remind ourselves, how do we calculate elapsed time? When we talk about elapsed time, we talk about time that has passed. You were doing a thing, or you were starting the period was starting of mathematical literacy in the morning. When is it going to end? How long is it going to take for that period? This is such an interesting topic. So when we talk about the elapsed time, let's look at one of the examples, how to do the calculations.